Donald Trump himself, not on trial. His company is charged with 9 counts, including conspiracy, tax fraud, falsifying business records, for more than 15 years, including during the time Trump was president. The Manhattan DA's office says the company paid high-ranking executives rent, expenses, private school tuition, leases, luxury cars, and intentionally never accounted for them on the company's payroll. Now, one of the key witnesses for the prosecution is Alan Weisselberg, the company's former CFO, who started working for the company in the 70s when it was led by Donald Trump's father. Weisselberg pleaded guilty in August to 15 counts after being charged as part of the alleged payroll fraud, admitting he hid about $1.7 million in income. Now, he's not cooperating against Trump in the investigation against him personally. His testimony in this case is just related to the case against the Trump Organization. It's part of a plea deal that included a 5-month jail sentence. He may serve as little as about 100 days. And during today's opening statement, the defense told jurors that Weisselberg will be lying, that he used outside accountants who told him things were done correctly. They say he's only agreeing to testify to get a lenient deal from prosecutors. And an unusual situation, during the opening statement, prosecutors' objections were sustained by the judge 12 times during the defense's opening statement. Usually objections are saved for witness testimony and not opening statements, and rarely in closing arguments. Prosecutors did call their first witness, Jeffrey McConney, the Trump Organization controller, who was Weisselberg's right-hand man. He still works for the Trump Organization, and met with defense attorneys before the trial, but refused to meet with the prosecutors. And today, he tried to make it difficult for those prosecutors by answering every question as literally as possible. Potential jurors were told to fill out a survey with 32 questions. They had included, do you have any strong opinions or firmly held beliefs about former President Donald J. Trump, either positive or negative, that would interfere with your ability to be a fair and impartial juror? Many admitted they could not be fair. Attorneys selected 12 jurors, 6 alternates. 1 juror has already been dismissed. Joining me again, Frank Runyeon, New York Courts reporter for the legal website Law 360. He was in court today. Good to see you again. Let's start by talking about the jurors. So they found 18 people that they can believe can be impartial when it comes to the word Trump?
They did. I mean, you know, and what's interesting about impartiality is it doesn't mean that you can't bring some sort of an opinion or some sort of outside knowledge. I mean, we're dealing with somebody that was the President of the United States. Everybody in the room knows who he was, and certainly, you know, people had strong opinions. There are even some people on this jury, actually, who said, yes, I do have strong opinions.
And you were saying to me that almost all of those people who have strong opinions who are on the jury were not positive about Donald Trump.
That we know of. I mean, you know, there were some folks that said, oh, I don't have particularly strong opinions, you know, as far as we can tell, right, from the questions and the answers. That's right. There was one woman that said that she felt positively about Donald Trump, and she was struck by the prosecution.
Yeah. And when it comes to this witness, this first witness who testified, right, this is a witness called by the prosecution, clearly doesn't want to be testifying, and you were saying he's not even really helping the prosecution's case much.
Jeffrey McConney. Well, I mean, we don't know yet, right? I mean, we're in the middle of a whole pile of tax documents that he's going through, spreadsheets. You know, we'll see where this goes.
Is it super complicated? I mean, is the trial itself and the evidence, like, really weedy?
Well, what's remarkable about this case is you have the chief financial officer has already pled guilty to the crimes that are identically the same as the charges against the company. So the real question is, when do the crimes of a CFO carry over into corporate criminal liability in New York? And, you know, that's an issue that Trump's lawyers tried to get into in opening statements, and that is what caused those 12 objections. For the judge to basically slap their hands and say, that's my job to tell them about the law.
What happens if the Trump Organization is convicted? No one's going to prison.
Right, exactly. It's a company. So, I mean, you've got about $2 million in fines, and there's no death penalty for the company in this case, right? There's a separate case involving the Attorney General where there's far more on the line for the company. But in this case, it's rather limited. And it's really a far cry from what we thought this case might be, which would be involving the indictment of the President of the United States. Now we're dealing with a rather narrow legal question of when is a company liable for what the CFO does.
Donald Trump expected to testify?
No. but I would welcome him as a surprise witness. That would liven things up.
Yeah. I don't envy the fact that you have to sit in court every day on this. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.